Good afternoon. Good
Thank
afternoon.
you.
Okay, we're ready.
All righty. So good afternoon, everybody. We are into another budget briefing meeting. And first, Representative Walker, do you have any comments?
No, I just want to, for those of you who hung in there last night, I just want to say thank you so much for that. And thank you for really showing the public we're always listening and stuff. So I just thank you and I feel much better. Thank you.
I know Senator Minor's on environment. I don't know if he's had a chance to pop over. And Representative France, are you on? I know that he had other meetings today too. Just so everybody knows, most of the committees are doing double meetings. So just be aware that they will be listening to what you say as we move along. So first up, Commissioner, how are you today?
I'm pretty good.
Good. Nice to see you. If you want to give us a few updates on what's going on, and then we'll go right into questions.
I'm so happy to do that. First, I want to say good afternoon, Senator Austin, as well as Representative Walker and ranking members. I know they're not here, and Senator Minor and Representative France, as well as distinguished members of the Appropriations Committee. The DMV is very happy to join you to provide an update. We submitted written confirmation yesterday, and so today we're just ready to take questions.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. So I'm wondering, how many positions do you currently have open, and have you already requested refills?
So we have 69 positions. We have 50 approved and active for refill. And we have, so that's what we have, 69 positions and 50 open for refills.
So 19 will not be filled?
They're not yet approved.
Oh, okay. So you sent them over to OPM or DAS for possible approval?
Yes, we have.
Okay, great. Thank you. Representative Nolan.
Madam Chair, good afternoon, Commissioner and others. I was wondering about the waiver in regards to driver ID, non-driver IDs for youth and homeless that we passed last year. I've had numerous people wanting to know and inquire what the status is in regard to that happening, because a lot of people are using them for jobs and housing.
So I don't have an update. I'll have to follow up with my staff on that issue offline.
Okay, if you could send that information to us to know when it will start and the procedure in which they have to go through, so that we can put that information out there. There's a lot of people waiting to
Okay, I'll do
about
that.
Thank you. I only have that one question for now, Senator. I'll come back after I finish writing stuff down.
Thank you very much, Representative. Representative Walker.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Commissioner. It's great to see you. And is that I can't see who's sitting next to you. Is that who is it?
Deputy Commissioner Guerrero.
Remember me, Tony?
Is that who that is? Representative Guerrero, how are you? I think it's great to see. I thought it was, but I wasn't sure, and I didn't want to say anything. But it's great to see you and see that you're working in an awesome department. I want to give you guys total praise because of the way you streamlined the process for something that all of us sort of dredge. We're having to deal with renewals of licenses and things like that. That is something that we just never thought. We thought that was going to be our lot in life. So I praise you all for how you handle all of it. There is a license, and I want to. It's another license that gives you also PSA passage. Is that correct?
Is that the real ID you're talking about?
Yeah, yes, the real ID. what is the real ID? Can you just tell us, and how many do we process? It's a lengthier time, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The real ID is a verified license where we currently are 62% compliant. There's roughly 1 million Connecticut residents who still have to get a real ID. And the date, fortunately, because it's been really slow, people adopting the real ID has been moved to May of 2023.
Of 2023. And the value for you and for us to get a real ID is what? Give me just a little information.
After that period, you will not be able to use a non-verified license to fly, and you'd have to bring your passport.
Okay. Okay. All right. That does have a value, because I'm always afraid of losing my ID.
Representative Walker.
Yes.
Walker, just real quick, that all stemmed, you probably remember this better than all of us, back in 2001 after the 9/11 occurrence. That's when the real ID came into place, and to verify who you are before you get on an airplane, and therefore to have the proper documents. As the commissioner said, they extended it because of COVID, as we all know, to 2023. But that will allow, instead of if you don't have a real ID and you want to travel throughout the United States, you're going to have to use a passport. And so therefore, when it's valid with that star on your license, you won't have to worry about that anymore.
That's fantastic. I think that we probably need to share that information a little bit more, because when I heard it, I not that I'm the benchmark for information, but when I talked to a couple of people, they didn't quite understand the value of it. They were doing it, but they didn't understand the value of it. So I appreciate that. I see that you want 1.3 million for increased license plate manufacturing costs. Where is that the facility for the license plates now?
Thank you for that question, Representative Walker. That is going to the DOC, and that's just an increase, obviously, for the price of aluminum. As you know, I think the DOC requested this for the last 10 years, I believe, because of the cost to make it. So that's basically a wash that basically goes to them for the cost to manufacture license plates.
Okay. So that's I mean, we all know that the cost of aluminum is going up.
67%.
How much? 67?
7% it went up.
Wow. And let's see, there was one other thing that I was looking at, which was the software maintenance. What what is that software going to provide?
As you know, we've gone online with Salesforce. That's really the platform that we're using. And so the additional licenses will incorporate getting more and more of our employees to be able to not only transact and respond to customers via the platform. And so we're going to be deploying it to the entire agency, or those employees that do the transactions.
So will that help expedite services for people around the state?
Well, this is just it's the platform that is deploying the online transactions. And so we're already using it right now. We have 7 transactions out there. We're going to continue to deploy transactions so that more and more people can have the convenience of doing their transactions online.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you. And if I have any more questions, I'll get in line. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much.
I'm sorry,
Yep.
Commissioner, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I just when the way that we started, I was trying to introduce the deputy, and so I didn't really give you a wholesome answer around our staffing. That's why the confusion. But we have 69 positions. We have 217 that are eligible for retirement. Wow. And right now, 48 have submitted their papers. So I apologize. It was just a little bit of a confusion there. And then I've been watching the presentations, and so you generally are the next person. So when you guys went out of order, it was a little bit confusing, but sorry about that. So it's roughly.
Well, we're a little loosey-goosey sometimes, so I apologize for that.
We had a long meeting last night, so we're kind of expediting things. Representative Zawistowski.
If you think by now I'd know to unmute. Thank you, thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for being here today, Commissioner, with your contingent of staff. I have a follow-up question on the software maintenance question as well. It mentions that the original expense was from federal funding. Do you recall how much that was?
So that's only, so it's not necessary for the licenses. The federal funding actually is how we deployed the appointment system as part of our response to COVID. And so that it helped us move the appointments online, as well as there are many other changes that we've made, but that's separate and distinct, those two items.
Okay, but it says this is okay. Software maintenance is what we're talking about today, but it's surprised. Okay, do you know how much the federal fund was for installing this software?
8 million.
Okay,
That was a part of the project that helped move the transactions online, roughly 7, and we're still in the process of migrating other transactions online.
okay, yeah, it's really good for the general public. It's very positive to be able to do a lot of this online. Is it resulting in any type of savings as far as possibility of staff reductions?
Right now, it's a little early in the life cycle because, as you know, we have a set staff, and when we're in the brick and mortar, many of our employees transacted every single transaction in person, and it used to take over 2 hours. Now, we've had some benefits in terms of the reduced timelines, as well as we now can deploy staff to support other activities that we're getting on side of the desk attention, like the outreach to communities. And so we're now able to do a lot more. We're able to support 4 veteran stand down sites this year, as opposed to just 1 in previous years. As well as we are leveraging the system to, maybe I'll stop right there to see if I answered your question.
Yeah, I think that did. And just while we have you here, even though it's not quite directly, there's no line item associated with this, but in the past, there have been some issues with used car dealers, small ones, being able to process transactions. Is that cleared up some, and is that something that's included in this new efficiency that you're working on?
It's not part of the main platform where we're paying for the licenses that we're talking about, but we are working with dealers. We have Dealer Online that allows casual sales. So we have multiple areas where we're automating, and that's one of them. So yes, they can go through the casual sales Dealer Online, but it's not part of the new Salesforce platform.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Senator Hartley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner. Great to see you again. Let me just start off by saying that you have made great strides in terms of bringing DMV into the 21st century, and that has been recognized, I think, across the state and certainly in the 15th district. But I wanted to go back, if I could, for a minute to this conversation about the Real ID. So because of COVID, we got it bumped out. I guess it was 12 months, a year. But how are we communicating this to the general public? Is it just by virtue of the license renewal at that time? Because I'm hearing from people saying, well, I wanted to get the Real ID. I got there and I had 2 pieces of required information for Real ID, but I didn't have the 3rd. So I just gave up because I can't go back again. And I don't think people understand the urgency of this, first of all, in terms of the date, which is going to be upon us in 12 months, but also it's also government buildings, if I'm understanding that you won't be able to.
Yep. So we do have an initiative called Know Before You Go, and it was targeted towards helping citizens understand what type of documents they need to bring to verify their ID. But by the sound of what you're saying, that is not working. So we will work with our communication staff to figure out a way to maybe use other means. Like we use Twitter, we use various channels, but it doesn't seem like it's getting there. So we will follow up to make sure that we are getting the message out there in as simple a manner as we can.
Yeah, I think it's really important in view of the fact that, 2023 is going to be upon us before we know it. If you have an information sheet that is it online or whatever, I mean, I for one, and I know many of my colleagues would probably, want to just share that, put it on our feeds as well, just to try to really drive the message home that, they need to do this and do it promptly.
We'll do that.
Yeah, if you have something like that, direct me to it or send it to me, because I would really like to telegraph that. And then on license renewals, Commissioner, so you renew your license, and help me out now. Is there it's a 6-year timeframe renewal? Is that correct?
Was it 6 and 8?
Yeah.
Yeah, 6 and 8.
So, if this is, a byproduct of the pandemic, I'm not sure, but I'm actually getting folks who are saying to me, I can't afford right now to be paying for, a 6-year renewal. Is there some way that I can do a year or 2 years until I'm back up on my feet?
That's a good question. I've never been asked, and so therefore I don't have an answer, but let me find out from the staff and we'll get back to you with an answer.
Yeah, that would be helpful because, I'm getting, and it's kind of heartbreaking to hear, but, people just can't expend that amount for, the 6 years. So that would be very helpful. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner and Deputy Commissioner.
Senator Hartley, if I could, good afternoon.
Yeah.
Nice to see you. Real quick, just so with the Real ID, as you know that every renewal license that goes out explains about the Real ID also. Unfortunately, a lot of people, you're right, look at it, they don't realize it.
Yeah.
Communications team has put a lot of things online on the Twitter, as the commissioner noted. But as we get closer, obviously, there might be some opportunities to do more radio ads or some type of publicity, whether it's through newsletters, as you stated, that comes out from the legislature or whatever it may be. But we try to emphasize how important it is. And I will say this, that Connecticut is one of the highest in regards to percentage of almost 62% compared to every other state out there.
Yeah, well, and that's to your credit, but it's also for entering state buildings and government buildings as well, is it not?
Yes, it is.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you.
All set, Senator Hartley?
I am. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Next up is Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. And before I get started, I just want to say I interact with many state departments, and I got to say, whenever I deal with the DMV, you guys are the most effective, efficient, and proactive. So I want to say thank you for that.
Thank you.
2 questions. One regarding the increase for the license plates. I'm not sure if it's a you question or DOC. I know there's an increase in materials. Will there be an increase in the wages for the inmates that are making those license plates? So that's one question. And secondly, on the Real ID, how does that impact our drive-only community? Will they be able to apply? Do they need to be DACA or have a visa? What's the status with the drive-only community if they were to try to get a Real ID or if they're even eligible for a Real ID?
Well, let me ask, good afternoon, Representative Rosario, and thank you for those 2 questions. First and foremost, number 1 with the DOC, that is something obviously that DOC would have to inquire about whether wages are going to be increased or whatever. Ours is just a flat cost for the materials and the cost to make those plates. So I think, to your point, you may want to talk to the DOC about that.
Thank you.
Real ID.
And, I'm sorry. And then the second on the Real ID, let us get back to you. I believe that, there may be an impact, but I believe that they have a green card or whatever it may be. They may be eligible. Don't hold me to it, but I think that we'd have to look into that and get back to you on that, Representative.
Thank you. Yeah, because I've been looking into the real ID, and I see that in some cases, I know Massachusetts just passed drive only recently. I think yesterday it went through the House. But I wasn't sure if you have to be a U.S. citizen or national. So we could definitely follow up on that.
I do think we can do a better job articulating and answering this question too. So we're going to look at the materials that we've been using to see if we can synthesize and make the, the information much clearer.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Thank
All
you.
set, Representative?
I'm all set, Senator. Thank you.
Okay, Representative Hayes.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to Commissioner and your Deputy Commissioner. Thanks for being here with us today. I wonder if I could just take the opportunity to ask if you can give me some kind of update on the opening of a DMV office in the northeast corner. The last I was told is that this would happen and there'd be an announcement in the first quarter. We've heard nothing, and I was wondering if you can update me on that.
Yes, thank you, Representative Hayes. I think I met you at the chamber coffee hour at that time, which was it was a great time. Good news that it went through OPM and signed off on it. And yes, that's good news. I just heard someone else approve of that. So the good news is that it went through OPM. I believe it went through the Attorney General already. So we're just waiting for the Property Review Board to look at it, sign off, and like I said, have some good news in the very near future.
Okay, and I thank you for that. The people up in this northeast corner have now been 2.5 years with absolutely no services whatsoever. So as soon as we can give them some kind of announcement with some encouragement, I greatly appreciate that.
Okay, we'll do that.
And just Representative Hayes, just a quick comment was that the commissioner, especially the commissioner who went out there, realized that and really, made sure that we have a presence in the northeast corner. And, just to let you know that is why we push so hard to get this done.
Okay, thank you for that, and thank you for your time. My dogs appreciated your conversation as well, obviously. Madam Chair, I'm done.
Thank you very much, Representative Hayes. One of the members texted me to ask a question. I hope I can get it right because on my phone, every time I try to look at a text, it shuts me out of everything else. So I keep trying to pop back and forth, but it's not very successful. So we have the last year there was a waiver for homeless persons' IDs. I think this is relative to what Representative Nolan was talking about.
Yes.
Has that been instituted in full yet?
I stated that I need to follow up because I don't have the answer today, but we'll certainly send that answer after this meeting.
Thank you. That gets out to the person that texted me, so I appreciate you responding. Thank you. Representative Reyes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner. Thank you for being here with us. Just a couple quick comments and question. I'm interested in seeing the number in dollars and actual units of licenses that are issued to the undocumented population. I'm very interested in that number. Number one. Number two, as far as satellite office, do you still use any satellite office for driver's license, or is that contract expired? And then the last thing was, what is your association with DOC, if at all, on prisoners leaving with an ID?
I'll start with the last one. We actually have a relationship and we do send our branch employees to DOT to support license renewal or getting new licenses. And so do you want to take the next one or should I?
Sure. In regards to our, I believe you asked about different agencies out there in regards to
Satellite, yeah, satellites for license.
So we do. We have AAA still, and we have Nutmeg out there that are able to do that. Just so you know that, Representative. And also, I think, as you heard the commission in regards to the reentry program, very proud of the commissioner and his team, what they've done. They're out in Bridgeport, all right, to make sure that we can have this reentry program. And the commissioner has made it an initiative to help all people who are reentering, to give them an ID, because she knows how important that is. Obviously, without an ID, they can't get a job. Without an ID, they can't provide services, to get services that they need. And this is first and foremost on the agenda for the commissioner and this administration. So thank you for that question.
Thank you.
So it's really important. We've started the reentry program as part of our outreach, and really the hard part to getting licenses is the ability to gather the documents to do so. So we are working with the reentry staff and putting together a process to, just show how you can use public health to get your, birth certificate. So there's a lot of work that's in progress to make that easier for people who need to get an ID.
No, Commissioner, I appreciate that. And you could imagine how much harder it is without an ID to start that process on the outside. So, and then the last thing, which was the first thing I asked, was if you can get back to the clerk and share with all of us the number of undocumented license actually issued, probably since the program has started, and how many dollars is actually obtaining for the state of Connecticut.
Okay, I'll do that. And one thing that I'll, add is the appointment to get a drive only used to be 8 to 9 months. And as a result of the modernization, it's still a long time, but it's now 2 to 4. So we are focused on that. We'll also be looking to have Super Mondays, and we establish a process where if we have cancellations for getting licenses, we do open it up to the non-driver IDs to come in and take those slots. So there's a lot of work to improve services to this population.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. And it's always a pleasure dealing with this particular group. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative. And so are there any other questions from colleagues? So I think that the universal feeling amongst legislators is DMV is one of the best run agencies, and you can tell by the number of questions that are out there. So thank you very much. We really appreciate it.
Senator Austin, I just want to say hello to you. I feel bad that you're in your car, you lost power there. But on behalf of the commissioner, we really want to thank your committee, Representative Walker's committee, and this administration, because this agency has really moved forward in the 21st century with the leadership of our commissioner and this administration. And having you guys back us up means a lot. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, they told me I'd get power back at 11. Then they said it was 1:30, and they just said 3:30. So I'm not certain when I'm getting power back. It's not a good sign when they keep pushing it out a couple hours. So.
Yep. And I also want to echo the deputy's comments. We really appreciate the support that you give this agency, and we will continue to make improvements to really support our residents in the most efficient and respectful manner. So thank you for your continued support.
You're welcome. You guys have a nice day.
Thank you.
So take care, everyone.
Bye-bye. Madam
Take care,
Administrator,
Tony.
do we have DOT ready?
I believe so.
Is the commissioner on?
I don't think so yet. I think
Commissioner
they're
is
just,
on. Yes, he is.
oh, he's on. They're just letting us in now, so.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Hi, Commissioner.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm just wishing that Eversource gets my power back sometime soon.
Kathy, I was going to ask you, which company are you waiting for?
I'm Eversource. I've used 17 miles by sitting in my driveway.
Yeah, I'm sure that Eversource is going to reimburse you for that, right?
They're not going to, but I don't expect them to either.
On our invoice, there's no link or nothing. So I
Hello?
Just don't.
Rich, you're not muted.
I don't know who. So I think that we're ready to start. Disregarding my car situation. Just so annoying, but it is what it is, and it's really nobody's fault. just the stupid windstorm. Good afternoon, Commissioner. It's a pleasure to see you today. If you would start with a couple of words, and then I know a lot of people have a lot of questions. We're really counting on your agency so much with the infrastructure dollars that the state will be receiving, and there is so much to be done in Connecticut. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you. And, I've already sent in the remarks, which, I'm not going to bother to read now, but I want to thank you for allowing me to appear before the Appropriations Committee to discuss Governor Lamont's recommended fiscal year 2023 midterm operating budget for our department. I have submitted the written comments for the committee that describes our budget in more detail. And with me today, as usual, we have the Deputy Commissioners, Mark Rolfe and Garrett Upolito, Bob Card, who's our Bureau Chief for Finance and Administration. And from our Finance Bureau, there's Gary Pesco-Solito, Lori Canary, Mark Hayes, and Darren Myers. The Bureau Chief for Policy and Planning is Ken Lassay. The Bureau Chief for Public Transportation, Rich Andreski. The Rail Administrator, Rich Jankovic. The Transit Administrator, Dennis Zelensky. The Chief Engineer and Bureau Chief for Engineering and Construction, Scott Hill. The Assistant Chief Engineer, Jim Fallon. Bureau Chief for Highway Operations, Paul Rizzo. My Chief of Staff, Jackie Primo. Pam Siccato and Ann Kleza from the Government Relations Office, and Diana Palmer from the Deputy Commissioner's Office. And with the amount of time it takes me to read that, I could have gone through our whole introduction. But I do want, I've always encouraged that. It was Representative Walker who, one of the first times I was here, when I introduced the staff, said, I wish more commissioners would do that. And I've taken that as our mantra going forward. You'll always know who's working here and who's been doing all I'll say the good work that's been done by the DOT.
Well, we know some of the staff that you stole from the legislative branch, and so we know how good they are.
I had to have somebody that could explain to me how I was to go and handle dealing with the legislative, and they've done a fantastic job.
Exactly. We want someone to come and explain to us to work with the legislative branch too. All joking aside.
Yes.
Commissioner, we have always put in money in the budget for engineers and other people relative to that job classification. And I'm curious, how are you doing in hiring engineers? Are we paying people enough to entice them to come to work for the state?
I'm going to say, you know that we've had this discussion both on the engineer side and in terms of what's happened with the people that are doing our maintenance side. It's getting harder and harder right now. Matter of fact, we're doing everything we can with reaching out to the universities. We're even reaching out to the universities down south because our salaries appear better to those people. But our problem is, how long are you going to keep them when they know that the minute they get up here, there's so many other higher salaries. So it has been a constant discussion. I've had these discussions with DAS. I've recently met with the new DAS commissioner because it's something that I believe has to be looked at in terms of what is going on in the industry right now. Very, very tough to be competitive. And I'm not talking about just with the private sector, but when you look at what has been put forward in terms of funding that's going to be available, every engineering firm out there is grabbing every person. And as we are seeing our own employees, every week I'm signing more and more letters of retirement, and they're running to engineering firms and picking up a lot more money with those engineering firms. So even our opportunity to bring them back for 120 days is challenged by the fact that there's so much more that they can make with the private sector out there. So it's a challenge. I'm not gonna try and hide it, from the standpoint that we're doing everything we can. I will say that we've had a lot of support in getting the jobs listed and posted, and I'm not getting delays on having our jobs approved to go forward, but it's not going to be an easy task to fill.
Thank you for that. And I think that's something that we really have to pay attention to, because we're going to count on state employees to handle a lot of the issues relative to the hiring of engineers to plan and project out these large infrastructure projects that are going on. So Representative Walker?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner, and thank you for those introductions. I couldn't write them all down, but I got the whole. I felt like I was a movie clip at the end where they tell you all the people there. They're all in your area. I'm going to first go to the DAS technology function, going over to DAS, where you lose 47 people and close to $8.5 million in your budget. I've been to your office and I've been to your operations, and the Star Trek deck is downstairs. You have incredible technology going on, watching and monitoring everything that is going on in the state, which I think that's fantastic. But does that interfere? Are those technicians part of your technology group that will be going over to DAS if the legislature approves it?
I'm gonna let Mark respond, but before he does, I want you to know that is also, as Mark is discussing it, I want to be clear that, again, I recently met with the DAS commissioner because some of the, let me start by saying I fully support centralization, but there's problems with centralization, that it works very well with small departments. But when you have large departments, you have to make sure that they, the economies of scale you get with small departments by centralizing is lost on a large department that constantly needs integration and people there. So I'm going to tell you that there's a lot of discussion going on about whether or not we need to retain some of the people here. And Mark will go through and explain to you the difference between the people that we have working on our highway ops versus the people that are in IT. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you, Commissioner. Again, Mark Rolfe, Deputy Commissioner. This is a subject that we've been working with DAS for some time on. To your specific point, when you visited our Highway Operations Center, the technicians sitting at the desk would not be impacted by this, but the behind the scenes folks that support the operation, that make sure that the network is fully operational, those folks potentially could be. And that's some of the people that we feel that's core to what DOT's mission is, and that's the discussion that we've been having with our colleagues at DAS. We do feel, as the commissioner said, that we need to protect some of that core capability and capacity within the agency. While we're generally supportive of a centralization effort, the particular details, I think that's still a work in progress.
I worry about that after seeing the efficiency, and also it gave me solace because I drive up and down the highway to Hartford, and we do all kinds of hours, and knowing that that somebody I can call and somebody will very carefully be able to identify where I am and help me, or any of that made me feel extremely secure about that, because it does bother people when they drive. But the other part is you operate also other entities that are driven out of your technology center. And I mean, we've seen some issues happen, in some of the other agencies in the HR consolidation, that it has larger agencies are having an obstruction because they're not able to turn over their people as quickly. So I think, Commissioner, you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the fact that there's the economies of scale with an organization like yours, who is not totally, but I'd say 50% dependent on technology to run your operation. It paralyzes you in some way, shape, or fashion. So I really hope that we will have an opportunity to talk about that at length, because I think the legislature has to look at that consolidation right now and what it does to the other systems that we have besides yours. So thank you for that answer. I'm gonna step aside and let some of my colleagues ask questions first, because they need to get into too. So thank you very much, and I'll be right back. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Walker. And just so everybody knows, again, I've said all day, I'm on my phone. I cannot tell what order people are in on this. It's not the same as being on a computer. So I have
I can help. I can
Representative.
help. I can help.
That would be great. Who's,
Representative Datham is next.
okay, great.
Thank you very much, Madam Chairs. Just two quick questions. Nice to see you, Commissioner, today. I appreciate your work that you've done in the state. My first question has to do with the direct service to Penn Station. That is really important for a lot of people in Fairfield County, and just wanted to get an update on the status of that.
You'll see in the write-up that was there, and again, I've got Rich Andreski on. We have been in active discussions, not only with the MTA, but with Amtrak as well. So the first phase that we're looking to put in is an Amtrak train that's going to come down from the Hartford line going right into Penn Station. I'll let Rich fill you in a little bit more on that. It's, you know, you're saying that they're looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to it here. Do you know how long it's been and how long the negotiations were to turn around? I mean, we actually gave up a lower level yard and moved it out to Mont Haven in order to allow the Long Island to come over to Grand Central so that we would one day have this. So this is great that we're finally starting to see that those fruits come together. Rich, you want to explain the operation? You're muted, Rich.
Good afternoon, Rich Andreski. I'm the Bureau Chief for Public Transportation. Good to see everyone. There are two services that we're working on. One is to Penn Station in partnership with Amtrak. There are about 20 million square feet of commercial space on the west side of Manhattan. And if you currently commute on Metro North into Grand Central, you have to transfer to a subway, and it's a bit of a ride over to the west side. So the direct service to Penn Station will provide service out of Hartford, stopping New Haven, Bridgeport, Stamford into Penn Station. We don't have a date for the start of that service, but sometime before the end of this year is our goal. And Amtrak would operate that train service, and we'll get people in around 8 o'clock, which is ideal if you're, starting a job, 8:30 or 9 o'clock in New York. The other service is a new service we're working on with Metro North. There'll be a series of express trains, 3 round trips, so 3 in the morning and then 3 coming back in the evening. Again, those trains will originate out of New Haven, in this case, making stops at Bridgeport, Stamford, and then into Grand Central. And that it's one of the ways in which we're achieving some improved travel time, in addition to other investments we're making in the infrastructure.
Thank you so much. That's really, really helpful. And apologies, I missed reading your testimony this morning. I'm having some connectivity problems of my own. My second question really has to deal with the passing lane on the New Canaan branch. I know we bonded $1 million to that in the last year's package, and was just wondering what the status of that project was and when we're going to have the results of that report.
And Rich, I'm going to say to you, do you want to tell them where we're at with looking at that passing track?
Sure, Commissioner. So this is just to be sure, this is the New Canaan siding?
Yeah, you hear about New Canaan. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yep. It's my regular drumbeat that I go on and on every time I see you guys.
Yeah, we have a planning and engineering firm on board with us looking at we generally know where we want to put the siding. We need to do some additional design concepts to see exactly how long and where we can place it. There's a minimum track length that we need to achieve to accommodate the trains. And so at this point, it's I would say in the concept phase. We can get back to you in terms of a hard schedule around, design and implementation.
Great. I would really appreciate it if you could get back to me, and I'm sure a lot of MTA writers would also like to hear about plans for the bar car, but I'm only allowed 2 questions, so I will stop there. Thank you so much for your answers, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Up next is Representative Nolan, followed by Representative Zawistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and once again, thanks Commissioner and your staff for being here. I was having discussion with a couple other legislators, and we were talking about the free bus service that you have listed for July and August of 2022. Is there a Excel sheet that you can send us to let us know how much bus service, how much the bus services are per month throughout the year, to show the difference in money taken in monthly?
Representative Nolan, first, it's good to see you outside of New London. I'll look forward to the next time we can be there together. But I do want to point out that there was a correction made to that. We are following the same pattern that we did last year. It's going to be weekend free buses between Memorial Day and Labor Day. There has been a mistake when they first put it out, but they made a correction to it. And that's why if you go back to the secretary's deck on it, it's free weekend service between Memorial Day and Labor Day. I will get you all that information. I will also let you know that I'll give you an offline conversation on some of the reasons why there's been a lot of resistance against free weekday service, aside from budget. The issues that it has caused in the past and how the riders have reacted to it. But I'd rather do that in a telephone call if you'll allow me to do that.
Oh, yes, definitely. So the amount that's allocated, is that changed also?
The amount, it will be adjusted as we see what the costs on it are. We had an idea from last year, and that's why I can give you all that information. But again, if you look at it, that we're extending the time frame from Memorial Day to Labor Day as opposed to just the months of July and August, then there will be a trade-off. It should go down a bit, but I'll get you all those numbers.
Okay, and if you can send Madam Administrator your contact number so I can reach out to you, I'll do that sometime.
You mean you didn't save it in your phone? We had it that day. Okay, good.
Well, I got a new phone now. So I don't.
By all means, I'll make sure you have it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative Nolan. Representative Zawistowski.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for being here this morning, Commissioner, with your staff. Two questions. When I talk to commissioners about DOT, they always have, there seems to be a recurring theme of 3 items. Number 1, your Plow people do an outstanding job. Number 2, you guys cut down too many trees. And number 3 is what I have the question about is that they see too many empty buses and or one person on a bus, or I've seen it as well. I just wanted to find out, understandable with the pandemic that there might have been some issues, but what kind of steps is DOT taking to realign demand for the bus service with the actual routes?
So first, let me turn around and thank you for the Plow comment. Tell you that I regret you made the tree comment. And in terms of the third comment on the empty buses, I'll let Garrett at this point, the deputy, talk to you about what we have been doing in realigning all bus service throughout the state, and also what we're looking to do with some of the waiting areas and the bus stops that are there. Garrett.
Yep. Good afternoon. This is Garrett Euclido, Deputy Commissioner. So our bus service during COVID actually has seen significant ridership. The lowest it ever reached was only a 50% decline, and that was during the peak lockdown period at the start of the COVID pandemic. Pre-COVID, we would have around 40 million trips per year, passenger trips per year on our bus system, essentially equal to our rail system. So right now we're operating at around a little over 70% ridership on our bus system, which is really significant compared to other parts of the country. So yes, there will always be a point in time in which buses are empty, but we have undertaken numerous studies to try and realign our bus routes based on where job opportunities are today, because many of our bus routes were established back in the 60s or 70s based on where job opportunities were at that time. and where people lived. So the first phase of that was in New Haven. We completed a study called Move New Haven, which has recommended realigning routes to serve the current needs of the public. And there's currently a study being undertaken right now in the greater Hartford region that CROG is currently doing that will recommend realigning those routes. And then the final part of what we're doing is we're doing a statewide customer experience study, engaging the public to see what they want to see as part of their transit experience. So that's going to help inform the future of transit as we move forward.
Thank you for that. I'm glad to see that there's some progress being made on it, because that is an important way of getting of transportation. It's best to see it utilized well. That's my concern. And Commissioner, I do have one other question, and I think you'd be surprised if I did not ask you about UPass. I wanted to find out if you have any metrics as far as what revenue you're getting from different sources. I know that you have some student revenue versus the expenses involved. Do you have anything like that that is kind of an apples to apples comparison on how that is performing?
So again, either Garrett or Rich, do you want to go and talk about how we track that?
Commissioner, I can do that. Garrett Euclido, Deputy Commissioner again. We had previous permission, as you know, to do UPass with public universities. So we have agreements in place with UConn as well as the Connecticut State University system. And those revenues are deposited into our account and help offset the cost of transit. And then the legislature just passed a new program called CT Pass, which has broadened the eligibility. The application just went online the first week of January. So we're currently evaluating all those requests, and we're having conversations with those individual or groups or schools that want to participate. But we can get you the financial flow chart before the working session on the existing UPass, and also provide you with information on where we're headed with CT Pass.
Great, that would be very, very helpful.
Sure.
So thank you very much, and thank you, Commissioner, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. So up next is Representative Rosario, but before you go, I just want to say something to what Representative Sawistowski said about the trees. And I can tell you that the 4,700 meters that are out as relative to tree limbs and trees being down probably are happy you're cutting down those trees. So I have another section of state highway that you could work on. Representative Rosario.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Commissioner. Thanks for being on. Again, I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Barnum Station. I ask about it all the time. I know we did a Barnum Station Transit-Oriented Development Master Plan a few years ago. The state's invested millions of dollars in that area. Just recently, we got another $10 million on bonding for the Remington Arms section right next door to the proposed train station. It almost feels like the Field of Dreams, but an opposite. It's like, if you build it, they will come. It feels like we're building around the TOD project, but the train station's not coming. And we always, we're looking for money. I know there's going to be some funds coming down. What do you have in your plans here to kind of help get things kickstarted?
Representative Rosario, one, you know that I was down there to go and meet with you and meet with the mayor and everything else to go and talk about it. And the other end of it is that there are some things that we're sitting down because we're looking at it not holistically, not only with what is involved there at the Barnum Station, but what we can do for straightening out curves and what might be the future there. And for me to go into it right now where I turn around and whet appetites and say there's some great concepts going on, I'm going to say to you the same thing I said to Representative Nolan. Let's set up a telephone call, because I want to talk to you about some concepts that are going on and what we feel is going to be the future over there and how we'll tie it in as a mega transit center in that area. So if you'll allow that, I'd like to have an offline conversation with you to not go and put something out into the public, but to turn around and instead say, what are some of the things we're exploring as potential possibilities going forward?
I would very much like that because I've been hearing for, we have major partners down there. We have Yale, Bridgeport, Steel Point, Bob Christoph. We have a lot of development happening in that area. And the number one thing I hear, it's like, when's the train station coming? What's the story? And we would definitely don't want to miss out on an opportunity to really transform a neighborhood. So we'd definitely love to have that conversation.
Y cuando tú tienes tiempo para mí, hablando.
Siempre estoy disponible para ti. Gracias.
Thank you, Representative Rosario. Representative Walker, before I go to Representative Reyes.
Thank you, ma'am. They're coming for the first time, so I'll go because I've already spoken. So I'll let them go and then I'll go. I'll be nice. Thanks.
Oh, okay. Representative Reyes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioner and team, thank you for being with us. It's always good to see you guys come before the appropriations. Commissioner, I got a feeling I know how this is going to end. It's going to be another one-on-one meeting with me and you in Waterbury having coffee. I think that's another one that's coming up. But
how can you complain in Waterbury? I mean, we got the electric buses, all the things that are going on. I've got a great relationship with your mayor there. I expect nothing but a very positive coffee experience with your representative.
It always is, Commissioner. It always is. And I wanted to thank you for taking a look at that safety concern that we spoke about a couple weeks ago. It's a windy road. It's a new greenway, and I want to make sure we get off on the good foot on that. But I want to segue on. One of my colleagues actually was talking about ridership and ridership in the state of Connecticut and bus usage. And the Waterbury has always had a high ridership. And what I want to speak about is when we talk about job opportunities, I've met with employers that have told me that they have the job openings, but the people can't get from point A to point B at certain shifts. And I would like to have this conversation about buses going into. I have 3 major industrial parks that from downtown, from point A to point B. It's the Waterbury Industrial Park, the Naugatuck Industrial Park, and the Watertown Park. We do a great job, and we stop short of taking in the second shift and bringing home the third shift. We stop real short. So I'd like to have that conversation, and we don't have to answer right now. But if we can figure that out, we can help employers connect the dots to the people who are unemployed right now.
Well, Representative Reyes, first I want to, you are right about the ridership there. All the way through the pandemic, we had to increase bus service. So when people say that people aren't using the buses, the Waterbury line was one of those lines we actually had to add service on. Dennis Solinsky is on right now from the bus end, and I'll involve him in our conversations because be glad to talk to you about those areas that you feel need more of the service on the second shift. Because the other thing that's growing, as you know, we're looking to put in more of the train service there as well. And we have to make sure that it complements that going forward. But that's been a remarkable line in terms of, how many people are dependent on the transit systems that are there to go forward. So look forward to that conversation. And yes, I expect it to be a very positive conversation.
It will be, Commissioner. Thank you very much for that. And I just want to make a comment because along with safety, I'm always involved with the cleanups locally. I'm not sure if I'm in the right audience, but statewide along the state properties of the highways and the underpasses, who's actually responsible for cleaning up the litter in those particular areas? Is it this group, or am I in the wrong church?
No, you're in the right church, in the right pew. And if you turn around and send me your list of where I need to go and pay attention to, I'll get your response on it.
Commissioner, appreciate you guys. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I have another question from a text that I got. They're wondering why the plow trucks were painted white and not orange, and is it possible to turn them back into orange again?
First off, Senator, it's a very good question because it allows our department, and it'd be Paul Rizzo that can explain it. But it turned out that it's not that we paint them white, they all come white. We had this special paint them orange. And the painting job alone costs considerably more. And it also meant that it did not make our trucks as marketable when we were turning them back over to the market to get a return on our investment. So by going to the white, we not only saved money, but we also did all of the add-ons to our trucks internally and saved another 15,000 per trucks by doing that with our own forces. But Paul Rizzo, are you on? It's
Yes,
your chance to shine, Paul. Tell them about all the things that your people have been taking great pride in expressing why we've been moving to the white.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Madam Chairs. Paul Rizzo, Bureau Chief of Highway Operations. Yes, we decided to move to white equipment. Just as the Commissioner said, we paid extra for our special color. Omaha Orange was a special color that we had to special order all equipment, which not only did it cost us more money in the front end, it extended the lead time on any equipment we could purchase. Any repairs would cost more money because, again, we have to pay extra for a specialty paint. And when we turn in our equipment, there was very little resale value to an orange truck versus a white truck. Many of the states and many utility companies have also done the same, or private companies have done the same. You could look at CLMP, used to be that strange yellow color, and they're changing over to white. Asplund trucks, same thing, changing to white. So it was a cost effective, it was much more cost effective for us to do this. And again, we're able to purchase a piece of equipment, and many times that piece of equipment is already sitting on the ground, the cabin chassis, and we can take that equipment right away, bring it in. And again, we're doing a lot of work internally. We've even started building our own trucks internally to save money. There was no safety tied to the orange color. It was just a color that was picked, who knows how many years ago, before most of us here. And between our white color and our multicolor light packages that we put on, it's actually, we're actually putting out a safer vehicle out there.
Thank you for that. I'm sure the person who texted me got that answer. And Representative Reyes, did you have another question? Your hand is still up. No?
No, Madam
Senator,
Chair, no, I'm all set. Thank you.
thank you. Senator Hartley.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Madam Chair, and Commissioner and team. Thanks for being with us today, and also every day, quite frankly, because you are always there to field our questions and help us with our circumstances. And so with that, I just am wondering, do we have an update at all on the bus route from Waterbury to Hartford? And thank you. That's been a very painful conversation. You stood up, some alternatives for us. Kudos on that. It was kind of a long time in coming. We're grateful. Is there an update?
Garrett, do you want to handle that? Because, I know there's a couple of landmines on that, so go ahead.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Senator. Garrett Euclido, Deputy Commissioner.
Hi, Garrett.
So we have been contacted by the private sector provider, actually just yesterday, contacted us to begin conversations again about the contract that had expired there. There are certain provisions in that contract that they had objected to back in August and September. And that is why the service lapsed back in September. Service could not be provided without a contract in place with that private sector operator. But they've reached out, and I have a meeting set up to meet with them in about a week and a half to continue conversations.
Okay, so it's just on the conversation stage. We've nothing tangible, which means we are still relegated to the alternative route, which is at least a route, but it's, not direct.
Yeah, unfortunately, without a contract in place, we can't have them running service on our behalf, on behalf of the state of Connecticut, as a public service. They could, this private provider could run service on their own, as a private enterprise, which my understanding is they were doing for the past few months. But until we finalize this contract dispute, we can't begin CT Transit Express service yet, but I'm hopeful we'll be able to reach a compromise and sign that contract.
Garrett, could you mention
Yeah,
how
they were
successful the other route has been? My apologies, Senator Hartley. But Garrett,
No, that's okay.
I do want them to know that, the introduction of this alternate service has been a success. It is continuing to grow. And the other part, Senator Hartley, after the discussions take place, let us give you a call then to tell you how it's moving along. Because as you know, there's a lot that's involved with this one that, again, we have to wait for things to settle.
Yeah, no, this has been a very sticky situation, and thank you. And by the way, big shout out to Ann on that, because she just shouldered through it and took all of my exasperating calls. One other question. So when's the Metro North Naugatuck Waterbury line going to light up? When are we talking about two-way? People keep saying, okay, you're talking about it. When?
So, Senator, you included it in the budget last year, so we are set to go this summer. Starting in fiscal year 23, we have the funding that you provided us. So I believe we'll be planning in July to launch that increased service on the Waterbury branch line.
Okay, that's going to be great news, but you'll keep us posted as to the date. I know that Rep. Reyes is going to celebrate with me along with many others. Yeah,
yes.
And you too, Commissioner, because you'll be tired of hearing our questions, and Garrett as well. If I might, the Naugatuck line, the Naugatuck stop, the platform was to be on both sides. I know we're moving forward on it, but it's been pared back 50%, if you will. Can you explain to me why and how will that meet the need that we have there in a new platform?
Yeah, so the Naugatuck train station, we will be moving it south from its current location down to the current vacant parcel, I think parcel B area in town. This is actually a good location for us operationally because the current one is on a slight curve area. Doing the one-sided platform is not going to provide any operational challenges. It actually will allow us to move much faster and at a much more cost-effective way. And then it will allow the town of Naugatuck to build. I know they have ambitions to build up all that property around the station area. So we've met with the mayor, we've committed, and funding is in our capital plan to build that station and to advance it. And it will allow the town to build up around it. And then that will actually, we won't have duplicative services where the developers in the town will be able to provide parking and it won't be duplicative parking, won't be duplicative services. So it's actually a good opportunity for us to grow that whole area in phases instead of waiting forever to piece together funding. This way we have funding in place to advance this new station that will let Naugatuck grow.
So I was under the impression we had the funding there, but this was just a stepping back from it, almost as if it was like moved around a little.
No, so we had funding to do the current location, to make repairs to the current location as a high level. For the capital plan we had never identified funding to do a full station rebuild until our current capital plan that was published. We actually have the line item in there now to actually build this new station. So it's the first time we've actually been able to dedicate state funds to this project.
Well, thank you for that, because I was uninformed as to the last part. And what is the timetable, Garrett?
Let me get back to you. I know we're finishing design right now, but it is accelerated. I think it's set to begin in fiscal year 23, I believe, but we'll get you that after this meeting.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Commissioner Garrett, team, and Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Walker.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and for the second time. First of all, I just want to say, I feel like I'm missing something because I'm not talking to you about a private project, but that's okay. I'm good. I'm good. I'll figure out something in New Haven to talk about very soon. But I want to go back to Representative Reyes's comments about the bus routes and everything. When you calculate the value of your bus routes, I hope you're calculating the fact that you're helping people get to jobs and students to school. So those factors have a dollar value in that, because for us as a state, we know that jobs are hard to find, and employees are even harder to find. And when we take off routes, we're denying access. So I just really worry about how we make those choices going forward in making those decisions. So put me at rest. They do have factor values in your calculations.
They most certainly do. And the other end, Representative Walker, is that, one of the things that when I came in here, we sat down with Department of Housing, because one of the things that I felt we don't historically do is take a look at where we're going to put in our housing without looking at how that housing is going to connect to both employment centers, transit centers, hospitals. So that's part of what we sit down with, when you're talking to Commissioner Sala, you'll understand that we talk with them all the time. But yes, there are those factors that go in. And, for me, the reason I pointed out when we were talking about the Waterbury line was it became crystal clear through this pandemic. All right, the critical people for getting to the hospitals and everywhere else needed to have those bus services going. And that's why we saw where we needed to go and add service during a pandemic. The rail lines are starting to return. We can talk about that a little bit later, but let me get you, and Garrett was nodding as you were saying it, how it is that we're able to take those factors into consideration.
Yeah, Representative Walker, this is Garrett Euclido again. I just want to, when it comes to analyzing routes, anytime we look to increase service or decrease service, the Federal Transit Administration makes us do a Title VI analysis and what we call a service and fare equity analysis. It's extremely detailed analysis, and we did that recently for New Haven area when we went to go expand hours of operation, because part of that Move New Haven study pointed out how many households in New Haven, how many people looking for jobs in New Haven were working that later shift, and they could take transit to work, but they couldn't take it home, just like Representative Ray was talking about. So in New Haven, we expanded those hours of operation just as a result of that study. And that's really what we are doing in all of these studies, is where can we grow service to serve the individuals, to make sure, because right now, if you only have limited, if you don't own a car and you rely on public transit, you're extremely limited in which jobs you can apply for based on where those routes are going to take you, or you have to shell out more money to take a taxi or an Uber. So the more service we can provide to them and the more routes they have access to, the greater economic mobility an individual has. So that's really our focus, is expanding in economic mobility and educational mobility for individuals.
Thank you for that, because I do remember in many times where we were shut down, CNAs and everybody that were around, they were still going to their private duties and things like that. And if we reduced transportation during that time, that would have really had a major impact. And I don't mean to pick on them, but I just noticed them because I saw them in their uniforms and I knew exactly who was doing it. But I saw people using the bus line during that time because everybody doesn't have a car. We all assume that everybody has a car, and it's not just in urban areas, in rural areas, because Senator Austin tells me that ad nauseum. So I mean, she's always telling me about the rural areas. So I mean, we have to be careful about sometimes how we make those determinations, and we think there's a loss, but there isn't a loss. There's a gain if somebody's getting to work and stuff. So I'm glad to hear that, and I thank you for that. And I you know, I could talk about the New Haven Railroad station, but we don't have to go there. We don't have to go there. I talk about that way too much.
It would be nothing but a joy to talk about it. It's been a
Yes.
tremendous success story.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And I thank you for all that you do, and the fact that you really take the state of Connecticut is really lucky to have you and your team. People really don't realize it, because you guys take pride in your state, and you also take pride in the delivery of transportation in variety of different methods, and the beautification of our state. So I thank you for everything you guys do. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you for nice words.
Thank you very much. So Commissioner, you know, and I appreciate Representative Walker talking about rural areas where we don't have a lot of ability to get around via public transportation, mostly because it's not cost effective. So many people either have very old cars, or you know, walk long distances or whatever they're doing, but they don't get the value of that. Based on that cost benefit analysis, we just don't reach the mark. That being said, I don't see anybody else who have hands up right now. I'm not going to talk about all the projects that Eastern Connecticut would like to see happen. I remind you about the Gold Star Bridge, and of course there's the Mohegan Pequot Bridge, and then I'd like to see something done with Route 11, but I would never mention any of those things.
Senator, can I react to one other thing you said when you gave the comment on the trees? You invited me to talk to a group, and I still remember I went there and people started complaining about the fact that we were cutting down trees. And while I'm in that same meeting, someone from Stonington or North Stonington got up and said, I want to thank you for cutting down the trees. It's the first time we didn't lose our power in a storm. So in the same meeting, you know, so, and I know as you know, representatives and public servants, you get this all the time, where for one good deed, somebody else sees it as, you know, a negative. But I did want to point out that, yes, there's both a good, you know, that's why you have to go by a standard. But I appreciate you turning around and offering a positive note on the tree cutting.
Well, people don't realize that Connecticut is far more treed today than it ever was. If you look at old pictures of Connecticut, you will see that it was virtually all cut down. We haven't really had a tree cutting program since the hurricane of '38, which decimated our trees in the state. But we are far more treed today. I think that it was Representative Reyes who was talking to Deep the other day that wants to get in on the America the Beautiful grants, which are the urban treeing grants, which I think are appropriate, absolutely appropriate. But when you have a small breeze that happens and we lose power for 10, 12 hours. And again, I've been sitting in my driveway, not going anywhere. And I had 169 miles to empty, and now I'm down to 146. So 23 miles just sitting in my driveway. You know, this is something that people out here, when we don't have power, we don't have water. So that's another issue.
Yeah.
So Commissioner, if you want to give a last few words, that would be great.
The last few words I would say is that, you know, one, I think, you know, and I meant it when I started, this was the first committee that turned around, that when I showed up, they talked about the fact that the entire team came forward to go and talk and answer questions, and that you appreciated that. And I was kind of surprised as a new commissioner that, you know, there was that type of, you know, maybe I would call it reluctance for the entire team to be there. But I do want to say we have a remarkable team here at the DOT. We've done nothing but, you know, you are right. I did rob some people. You know, when we see talent, we consider it fair game to be able to go and grab the best of the best and bring them over here so that they can all act in the best interest of the state. So I want to thank this committee for the support you've shown to us. We've always made it a point that we were going to be good stewards of the public's money. I think you've seen it reflected. And again, there is, no issue that, we don't want to go and talk about with you and discuss with you. And again, we do our best to keep you informed on everything that's going on, so you know what's coming out. And it's a remarkable time for me. In my 50 years involved in the public sector and public transportation, I've never seen the opportunities that we have right now with the federal government, for what potentially can be coming here. And you should know that in terms of all the people that I deal with, and they're people that I've known for 20 and 30 years in the top positions in DC, they consider us to be very, very good stewards and are looking forward to opportunities moving forward in this state. And you know that we will keep coming back to you because we want to be able to take advantage of those opportunities as they come forward. So I want to thank the chairs of this committee. I want to thank the entire committee. I always find that your questions are, they're genuine, they're to the heart, and they talks about conceptually where we should be going as a state. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you. Madam Administrator, Tony, we still have another committee. I think we still have one more committee, but I don't think they start till 3, Madam Administrator.
That's correct. Nice try, Representative Walker, but you are back on at 3 o'clock with regulation and protection. It would be a huge disappointment to Commissioner Ravella and Commissioner Siegel if they didn't get to see your bright, shiny face. So
we will be back at 3 o'clock. We'll go on recess until 3 o'clock.
Thank you.
Tony, you had my eyes. Tony, you had my eyes open really wide there for a minute. And then I was like, oh, yeah.
I didn't read the flip side of the schedule. I just saw that and I said 2:30. Yes.
Yeah, nice try. Bye, everybody.
Right.
We'll
See
be
you
back at 3.
All righty.
Sue, can we start a new thread and include Taylor Williams? Text thread?
Hold on a second, Jay.
Okay. I don't know what this your mouse.
Do we have electricity? Kathy? Kathy? Can you hear me? Nope. Kathy? Senator Austin? Woo-hoo.
Having a problem with her phone.
Did she text you that?
No, I can see her trying to talk.
Oh. I hope her phone didn't collapse on her. Did she got out? Well,
yeah.
Let's see. I don't have the list of speakers. Senator Austin, are you with us? There we go.
I am.
Okay.
I was asking, could anybody hear me? So I just signed out and signed back in.
Well, that's good because we couldn't hear you. We saw you moving, but moving your lips, but we didn't hear. But I think we're here to start.
Yep. Commissioner Ravella.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Senator Austin, Representative Walker, distinguished members of the Appropriation Committee, and James Ravella, Commissioner of the Emergency Service Protection. Folks, with me are Scott DeVico, my Chief of Staff, Sergeant Morris, and also on the line are Dr. Guy Valero from the Scientific Services, and my Chief Financial Officer, Rosemary Peshka. I'd like to begin I fully support the Governor's recommended budget adjustments and grateful for the resources to the department. They're interesting areas, folks. They're going to fund address backlogs and improve turnaround times at our state crime lab. They're going to increase training opportunities for our law enforcement officers, including all of the troopers. And besides state comeback proposal, it's going to address violence prevention measures and to combat illegal firearms. And with that, can we go with questions?
I have a couple of questions, Commissioner, and then if others could please raise their hand. We are in the middle of one class right now, and there has been a little bit of talk about a little bit of a problem relative to test taking or cheating there. How many troopers are pending graduation from that class?
From that class, there's presently 61 in that class. There is an investigation. And quite frankly, Senator, I'm not one to react on a knee-jerk reaction. We brought the appropriate resources to bear on that, which means there's an investigation in progress at the lab, really encompassing at least 7 trainees.
Okay, I'm just only asking because we really need troopers, and I know you know that. So I just wanted to have a general scope of the problem, and I think that that's helpful. And I think that you're doing absolutely the right thing by doing an investigation and not overreacting to negativity. How many classes does the governor have in this next budget for new troopers?
Besides the one coming out in later in March, there are 2 more classes included in the budget, and they're big classes. And we're figuring at least 100 each class if we can get the candidates through the process. There should be more than enough money for both of those.
In order to, is there enough money in the budget, not just for the trooper classes, but to outfit those troopers relative to vehicles, equipment, uniforms, all of the necessary things? Because I noticed that there was a 90 car increase, and I'm just curious about that.
So let's talk about their durable kind of our things. The firearms, yes. The rifles, yes. All the uniforms and all their expendable stuff are all in the budgets for us to procure. Matter of fact, we've done some initial procuring on that. And I think it revolves around the fleet, which is also in the some revisions here. We noticed that there's at least a $300,000 reconciliation we have to make, and OPM agreed on that with us for some of the previous leases and the ones we have coming in this year. On top of that, we asked for another $450,000 for the 132nd class, which we think will be around 90 coming out the door. That was a budget revision that you've seen.
And the vehicles themselves?
Those are the vehicles, the 450 for those vehicles. Yes.
Okay, and are they, based on the fact that we have supply chain problems, are you able to receive those vehicles in a timely fashion?
Actually, the ones we've purchased last year after the budget was voted on, we are having problems getting those in. Exactly what you see from television, right? Supply chain issues. I'm seeing estimates of maybe March, but I've seen estimates on other vehicles to be at least into May. So we are seeing those supply chain issues.
Okay, thank you for that. Representative Walker.
Oops, thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner Ravella. Good to see you. Good to see you. My first question is about the Violent Crimes Task Force. How many task force did we do up to this point? I know we did one in Glastonbury, but I wasn't sure where else we went.
We actually didn't do one just in Glastonbury. So last year we noticed, and I had a lot of conversations with OPM and Mark Palka, and we noticed the uptick on stolen cars. And we noticed that what we could do is begin to fund a lot of the municipalities with an overtime budget so they could work strictly on over stolen cars. So we're going to duplicate that this time around. So there's two different task forces that are going to run here. There's one, we're going to again use the same game plan as before with the auto theft task force. We want to fund the hub cities, which are your major cities around the state. And then we want to support upwards of almost 50 local municipalities with 35,000 for their overtime budget to work solely on stolen cars. Now, the new portion of that is actually the Violent Crimes Task Force. You know, we're back to tough times in our cities and the surrounding areas where most of our homicides and our non-fatal shootings apply. So what we crafted is it's based on my statutory authority for statutes 2910, which I can grant statewide authority, particularly to law enforcement officers to participate in task forces. And this one's built around a reimbursement for the 22 officers, not including the state police. And the reimbursement to local municipalities is a monthly reimbursement, but it totals $50,400 for the municipalities to work with us. So those are the spokes. Not only do we want the folks from the cities, we want the municipalities around there. We no longer live in an age where boundaries really matter to the bad guys and bad girls that give us a bad reputation. So those are the two task force. Yeah.
So let me make sure I understand. So the one that we did before was a $35,000 to 50 cities for overtime reimbursement. Sorry.
That's all right. No, there's two components to it. We did a little more towards the bigger cities. And then we did 35,000 to up to 50 municipalities rather than just the cities. Cities got more.
Oh, okay. So, and then the second part was 22 officers, state police that were then they worked around the state, and then you did monthly reimbursements to municipalities for any of the members that teamed up with those officers.
That's proposed.
That's proposed
in the ARPA. That's proposed where we use state troopers, and we'll use 22 local folks to form that violent crime task force.
I'm sorry. Maybe I missed it. I thought are you using the police from the districts, or are you providing them with 22 state troopers?
No, we're using 22 from the local municipalities with a reimbursement to their municipality. And then I'm going to use some state troopers to supplement that with them.
Okay, because I know, like I saw on the news today, New Britain is short. A lot of the towns are short. So it's going to be, I'm sure they're going to find it hard to find officers because they're probably duplicating and triplicating their duties. I mean, their shifts. So I thought we were providing state troopers. I didn't realize it was going to be from the local police.
No, it's almost impossible for me to. Okay. I'm sorry, it's almost impossible for me to supply 22 state troopers, and they're spread kind of thin now. So I can supply support to them and some leadership and work with the cities and the towns, their officers.
Okay, so I'm going to go back to what you did already. What you did already was reimbursing the towns for overtime with the police. How effective did you get? What type of statistics did you get in your effectiveness with this?
So my year-end statistics are not in yet. They dribble in based on the police department. So the ones we've seen so far is that we're beginning to see a reduction in stolen cars, and which is a good sign.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also starting to see somewhat of a reduction in, although smaller, in violent crimes involving guns. So what we'd like to do is keep building on that. And we tweaked the system a little bit. We advocated the hub and spoke theory, meaning, all these suburbs around the cities, they got to be symbiotic and realize they rely on each other.
Okay. All right. I mean, so how soon will we be able to get the data? That's what I'm curious, because it's been almost a year, correct?
The numbers were completed at the end of December, but they dribble in, and then we have to go through some scrubbing of the numbers to make sure they're accurate. So my first read on it was what I told you. The second read won't be for at least a couple more months before we can talk about accuracy.
Okay. All right. Well, I thank you for that. The other question that I had was the buyback program. How effective do you think the gun buyback program is? Because some people were saying that it doesn't really reduce it, or most of the people that bring the guns in are people that aren't the ones that are using it. So how effective do you think the buyback program is?
Let's I don't want to take up everybody's time, but I've read literature around the country which really doesn't support, and they're up in the air about whether gun buyback programs exist. But this is an opportunity for police to really partner with their communities and have a common cause. And we haven't set the parameters yet, but for instance, in Hartford, what I did is, hey, we saw semi-automatics, we saw 9mm, we saw 380s. We went big on that. And we also went big on assault rifles, because those were just so dangerous in the state. And then we teamed with hospitals when we talked about psychiatric issues and folks taking their lives. So it's a nice component to supplement just law enforcement, where you can actually get in the folks' community and really make the real relationships.
Okay. My final question, explain to me, what is the gun tracing task force?
So back, I think it was almost 2013, 2014, the state police had a gun tracing task force. And ATF puts out a yearly report on where your guns seized in crimes come from, right? And it's somewhat dated. For instance, it was made 5 or 10 years ago, and this location was first sold in another state. And how did it end up in your state? And we don't know what happened in between those times where it was transferred to. We also suspect that folks who want to buy guns legally are known as straw buyers that'll buy the same caliber, the same make and model. And, you know, they may buy so many of them that there could be a suspected straw buyer where they're actually buying them in exchange for narcotics or sending them out. And then the fact of a lot of our guns come from burglaries and or out-of-state transport. I think we need to track those things down, and we really need to put some context and some good data towards where our guns come from, because they really end up in our cities very, very quickly.
No, I've talked a lot to the police in New Haven, and a lot of the guns that show up in New Haven are really people using them for buying drugs. They come into New Haven, and I don't know, and that may help us in tracing them, because it's kind of silly, but they come in actually off the same exits in New Haven, and they go to the same neighborhoods and everything. So it's just amazing to me how that happens. But yeah, I've heard about that. So the gun tracing task force is basically it's software, and it's keeping records on the. Is that what the money's for?
So you're kind of reading into our playbook a little bit. So you see the interdiction teams that we want to put out. So we're talking about guns and drugs and cars and how they move through our cities and towns. So the gun tracing task force will be at least 4 troopers and a sergeant, followed by at least 4 local municipality officers, also under my statutory authority, and a reimbursement, the same reimbursement of $50,400 for those folks. We really need to get down to the bottom of it, but you've hit it. You've hit all the points. You're kind of in our playbook a lot.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for talking to me about them, because I saw them and I was very curious about all of them, and I really look forward to hearing about them and where we're working. So it's important. We've got to look at all kinds of ways to address this uptick in many ways. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. I think our Representative Nolan is right behind me, so I'm going to shift over to Representative Nolan. Are you?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner and staff on supporting. First question I have is about the centralized information technology functions under the Department of Administrative Services. That 34 positions, the shift of those positions, is that hindering you guys from things, or is the shift going to take the responsible things that they do now with them?
The shift will mean that they take the responsibilities that they do now that fall under the umbrella of DAS and BITS, BITS. And I've been told it's the same service that we have today. And our folks, most of our folks will be performing those same services. So it's really a centralization. It's an optimization. It's an advancement for education and training for these folks. And we'll have to see how it goes. Okay,
thank you. And the next questions are kind of about the task force. We're looks like we have 1, 2, 3 different task force in this budget. And I was wondering, is that something that we couldn't combine instead of having 3 separate? I mean, because, you know, usually when we're out there targeting illicit narcotics, bulk cash, and firearms, well, the gun tracing task force, I would kind of think would be doing something very similar to that. And then as far as the local police to address auto theft violence, isn't that some things that they would run into?
So let me address what I call how diluted law enforcement becomes. If I was to take the gun task force and the violent task forces, they'd just be chasing violence. They wouldn't be chasing the guns I need them to chase down. So I think they would become far too diluted and just be sucked up into the violence area. And there's particular art to gun tracing here. The Violent Crime Task Force I've spoken a lot about, really needs to center in and around our hub cities. And the third one is, towns have set overtime budgets, and I think 35,000 is a good kind of start for those folks to really handle auto theft on their level in connection with the hub cities. Meaning, if we don't have officers, it's a force multiplier if I can pay those officers overtime and put them back out there. That's the only way, because training and getting officers to want to be officers is a challenge for us. So you need force multipliers. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Those are questions I was just asked. And just for a little bit more elaboration, to expand Violent Crimes Task Force by adding municipal officers, is that officers that are already in statewide narcotics or is that new officers?
So those 22 positions will be available for local municipalities. If they want to take a position, we will refund them $50,400, and we will also give them statewide law enforcement powers. They'll be guided by a sergeant, and they will become under the essentially under just the guidance of the state police. But in reality, they're going to stay very, very close to home. Meaning, if they come from around New Haven or they come from around Bridgeport, they're going to stay very close to home and in tune with what's going on in those municipalities.
So they won't be existing officers already in statewide. It's a new position.
It'll be new municipal officers, yes. For a duration, it's a 2-year duration.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, and hooray, I have power. And it's not dark out. My heat's back on. Yay. So Commissioner, let's see if I have anybody else that has any questions. Now I can actually see everybody. It's a wonderful thing. I did talk to your staff a little bit the other day when I was on a different meeting over in public safety and talked about 2 different grant opportunities that were more available before, in particular to resident troopers that work a lot in the rural communities. And one of them was the DUI grant. I believe both of these are federal grants that we get that are parsed out to whomever applies for them, whether it's any of our local police departments or through the state police to resident troopers. And so I'm curious, has that been reinstituted by the federal government? I know it runs through your department. And the other one was the rural roads one. And the rural roads one was like a speed enforcement kind of grant that worked in rural areas. So when we're talking about some of the things that are going on with fatalities, a lot of times it has to do with speed. And it's certainly not just happening on the major highways. And so I was wondering if you had a chance to look at either one of those.
The colonel was tasked with tracking those down. As of today, when I asked him about it, he had not gotten the information yet. He was also soliciting DOT too, because a lot of our grants come through them. So as soon as I get that information, I'll submit it to everyone. So
that would be great. That would be great. Are there any questions from colleagues? Commissioner, I guess things are running great over in so we have no questions relative to this. I think that we're all set. Thank you very much for coming and supplying us with information.
Okay, and thank you, everybody. Have a good weekend. And if you have any follow-up, we're certainly available to track that down for you and submit it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye now.
Bye. Up next, I think we have the Department of Consumer Protection, and I saw Maureen Magnan already popping in, so I'm wondering, is the commissioner here?
She's on her way, Senator.
Thank you very much.
I just admitted her,
Thank you.
Madam Chair.
We're a little early, so. Hi, Commissioner Siegel, how are you?
Oh, good. How are you? Are you ready for me?
We are ready for, if you're ready for us.
Always. Well, for Senator Austin, Representative Walker, Senator Minor, Representative France, and honorable members of the Appropriations Subcommittee. Thank you for having me here today. I'm here with our deputy commissioners and along with some of our budget staff at DCP and DAS. You should have, I believe, my written testimony in support of the governor's budget. More or less has DCP operations continuing as they are, with the kind of one nuance that the centralization of IT is resulting in some positions moving from our budget to the DAS budget. But with that, I won't kind of repeat everything that's in the written testimony, and I am happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. I have a couple of questions. Relative to the gaming part, the permits, and it seems to me that we've gotten things moving along. How much are you receiving from the two tribal nations and from the lottery to support positions at DCP?
Oh, let me pull up that spreadsheet.
And if you could send us that spreadsheet, that would be helpful.
Okay. This is, I believe it's going to be about 3 million, like between them in sort of personnel costs. And then there's OE, but I have Marie Stearns, my budget director, on here if I got that wrong.
Foxwoods and Mohegan Sun were both assessed a little over $885,000 each, and Connecticut Lottery Corporation was 1.3 million.
And I'm wondering if you could send that spreadsheet over, and how many staff does that accommodate?
It's about 35.
And it pays for their benefits too?
Yes, fringe benefits, yes.
Thank you. So if you could just send that over with the positions, that the number of positions and by job class, that would be great. And relative to the cannabis, marijuana, what is going on relative to cannabis, marijuana? Where do we stand?
So it's moving along sort of apace. The bill that passed creates an important role for social equity, creates a social equity council, an important role for them to play in the licensing process so that we can kind of be sure that the goals of the law are accomplished there. So we've begun on a rolling basis opening up license applications. There's a number of avenues to get a license. So there's 9 license types that are, and we've begun opening up lottery process for them. In addition, we've opened up the process so that the medical businesses can begin converting so that they can participate in adult use. There's also, the statute provides a 3-month window for cultivators in disproportionately impacted areas to apply for just a cultivator license. It's a one-time opportunity for 3 months. So that license period is open. In addition, there is some incentive for the medical businesses to enter into equity joint ventures, and the application for that is now open as well.
And how many positions do we have in that are taking care of this component right now? How many positions?
It's going to be about 63.
That right now, what do you have right now, working on it right now?
We've hired only about, I think, 17 or 18. We've got 38 in process, so that doesn't quite add up to the map, but let me pull that one up. Pull up the right spreadsheet here. And we've got a number that are getting towards the end of the process. So yeah, with cannabis, we've filled like 24 and have another 38 vacant. But a number of those are pretty far along in the process of being hired.
So if you could send us that spreadsheet also relative to the cannabis numbers, how many you've hired, you know, kind of what is their job class, what is the next job class? If it's all the same, that's fine. We just want to understand what's going on with that. And when do you expect to start seeing revenue coming in for the cannabis is also a question.
Well, a little revenue is coming in already in the sense that there are license fees associated, particularly with entering into the lottery, the conversion applications. There is a fee for that, which varies depending on whether the medical businesses decide to enter into equity joint ventures. So some of that is already kind of starting to trickle in. But in terms of the marketing opening up, we're still a ways away from that, where that kind of tax revenue would be in play.
And relative to hemp, there's a bill in to model something after, I don't know if it's being taken up or not, but if it's not, it will be presented again next session, relative to allowing hemp to be sold in retail facilities that also sell marijuana, so hemp products, CBD, and other kinds of products relative to that. Have you seen that or looked at that option?
Right now, I think our plan in the rules provide that if you are a retailer for cannabis, you're only going to be selling cannabis products. And that's sort of some advice that was given to us in other states, is that once you start opening the door for other products to be in these stores, it can become, you know, there's age restrictions, there's other sort of nuance, and there's just different rules around how hemp is grown than how cannabis is manufactured.
But not how hemp is sold. And that's different. I'm not saying that it would be growing, although I'm looking at that too, growing hemp and growing recreational marijuana. If you can separate it, and it doesn't, that's something that we could look at. But this is selling product. In Massachusetts, our neighbor next door is doing that. They passed the law already to do that. So I just want to put that on your radar. And my last question has nothing to do with gaming or marijuana, thank goodness. I was talking to some people, and I heard this was under your purview, and if it's not, please tell me. Pharmacies cannot do flu shots or other vaccines for children in Connecticut. And I'm curious, other states allow that. Is that a DCP issue?
I believe that would be something more in statute. I know it was an issue we looked at a bit through executive orders. So I'm not sure if it, but
because you have a pharmacy bill in federal law, and would that be something that you would enforce for pharmacies? My understanding that came from you, that was a DCP bill in general law. Is that a fact?
That could be. I'll defer to we don't have a bill this session that addresses that at all.
Not children, it addresses adults in pharmacies. And so.
Okay, yes, we do.
Okay, so that's why I'm looking to see if this is something that we could do to expand it to allow pharmacies to give vaccines to children, and whether it would fit in with that model that you have already.
You know, we can certainly look at the language on that as well. The bill is actually in public health, so
you have one in general law from you too, I think.
Okay,
right.
But we can look at the kids. It's obviously there's you know, various contingencies who have different opinions as to how young of a person a pharmacist could issue a vaccine to, but you know, we can look at that language as well.
Thank you. Representative Nolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon, Commissioner, and to your staff that are present. We appreciate you taking time to give us a clear understanding of the budget. I have concerns in regards to the sale of liquor and tobacco to minors. And I was wondering, is it in your purview to control the fining that goes with that, and or the penalty for these stores that violate this? And I was just wondering how long it's been since that fine has been increased, because it still seems to be a problem that continues even with the same stores sometimes.
So the liquor part does fall with DCP. So we have a liquor control commission, and so a lot of that process flows through them. They do increase the penalties for repeat violations. In addition to monetary violation, there are, we'll close places down for a period of time as well and suspend someone's license for sale to minors. That's certainly one we take pretty seriously. So that would be within DCP. We can look at the penalties we're doing. Often cases are individual. Sometimes we have to see, was it really the business's fault, or did somebody go in with a really good ID, or what, or did somebody buy it and then go out to the store and give it to somebody underage? So sometimes underage drinking happens through avenues other than a minor going into one of our licensed facilities or permitted businesses and buying it directly themselves. But we can certainly take a look and consult with the Liquor Control Commission on that.
Okay, if you can send us some information on that so we can have clarity in regards to some of the fines and the last time that might have been changed. And the other question I had is Senator Olson asked several of the questions that I wanted to know about cannabis, but at what level or what point do we start finding out or seeing what the packaging is going to be for that, and if there's going to be just to ensure there's safety markings or warnings on the packaging? Is that something in your purview also?
It is, and we've come up with some pretty robust policies and procedures around that. So there's requirements that the packaging really be very basic so that it can't be confused with a non-cannabis product. We know from other states, they make it look like a kind of run-of-the-mill candy or something else. So we don't allow that. There's requirements for very specific labeling to notify people that the product has THC in it, that it's only available for people over 21, has to be child-proof packaging, so that somebody doesn't get into it accidentally either. You have the concern with perhaps older kids doing it, but you also have concern with younger people getting into it accidentally. And so we have a lot, and we have posted on our website the policies and procedures, which effectively act as the rules that cover all of that.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers. And Madam Chair, I appreciate that time. Have a nice weekend.
Thank you. Representative Walker.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Commissioner, and good afternoon, Maureen, and good afternoon, Andrea. You guys look so stoic there, and Marie, but I mean, I've worked with Maureen for a long time. I won't say how long. So I have to say hi, and I've worked with Andrea too. So I just want to say thank you for your team coming. I want to ask you a question about your IT. What do you use your IT for in your operation?
We use them for a lot. I mean, at its most basic level, we have, well over 200 employees who just constantly just need desktop support. We're doing a lot of hiring because of the expansion. So when somebody leaves, their computers have to be kind of reconfigured and given to somebody else. So they do a lot of that. They soon are actually part of DAS, but there are liaison on bigger picture issues with best And it's not just computers. Smartphones are a big part of the agency, tablets for especially our field inspectors, so that we're moving more and more online so that they can do that. They also provide phone support, and we do a lot through Teams, and then training on new features. They do some support on our website. So they do a whole host of things for us. And then in addition, we have a number of sort of IT software programs that they help to implement and support.
You rely a lot on categorizing and everything, cataloging, because like your licenses and everything all have to be, they're all done by technology. People send them in the communication. So having 6 people from your office be moved over to DAS, doesn't that sort of handicap you in doing all your work that you're trying to do?
We have an MOU with DAS, and they're creating a structure. So just currently we work through DAS. I have someone in the business office, but their business office helps support us on a lot of stuff. Similar HR, they provide that support. So certainly if we were just losing 6 people, but the process is going to be those 6 people will be part of this larger IT organization for the state. So we anticipate having the same, if not greater, level of support as that plays out. But currently things are kind of continuing as they are while the transition moves forward.
Okay, because I worry about this centralizing of IT. We're trying to modernize our systems and things, and you're getting the core group of your people shifted over to somebody else. I know the MOU, but it still slows down your ability to process things and to do things, because the reason why you are able to do what you're doing with less than 200 people is basically because you use technology in trying to catalog and categorize everything that you do and manage it. So now when you say you have an MOU, what does that mean?
So we have this, it's essentially like a contract, but an agreement between ourselves and DAS for how this transition will happen and the level of support DCP can expect to continue receiving through the transition. So
you've got an MOU you'll have an MOU with DAS that says that the 6 people that you have, that you're giving to DAS, you still have control over in DAS.
In an interim period, I mean, over time, they will eventually be DAS employees. And just as we have our HR staff is with DAS and they provide support, it would be a similar sort of concept with IT.
Okay, so and you've got 24 of the 63 positions, and you still have 38. So how has that process been? Has it been difficult to get those positions filled, or is it just? I know everybody's having a hard time finding people, period. But is it because of the process, or is it because we're learning how to get along, how to make this transition? I'm trying to figure out, because everybody seems to have a large number of people they have to hire. So I'm trying to figure out what do we need to do to fix this so that we have a better turnaround for staff people in our agency.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of there's a number of things that go into hiring. I mean, it is just a process. Just you need to post a position and then you schedule your interviews. From there, you need to select the candidates, get offer letters out to them, and then sometimes they turn it down, and you're back, can be back at the beginning on something, or you don't get an applicant pool. So there's a lot. We've also, it certainly takes some time at DCP. Some of the cannabis, we're intentionally being a little slower in hiring because the rollout, we initially, I think this is, thought the we want to make it sort of match up with the timeline of the rollout so we don't have people showing up too early. And then some of it, which because we're growing so much, has been nice. We've been able to provide promotional opportunities for people within the agency so they can see a career path for themselves. But that, of course, means when they take a new job within the agency, it just opens up a different vacancy. So between the growth in cannabis, the growth in gaming, and then the cannibalization and the retirement, we certainly have a lot, but I'm not, we do have a very supportive HR team that in that regard.
I've talked to some people who applied for jobs, not with you, but with other, and a lot of them said it took too long for them and they took other jobs. So, I mean, you're not the only, well, you didn't say it, but other people have said that it takes a long time for the state to get back in touch with them about whether there's a job or not. So I think maybe time is in there. So, okay. My other question, I'll leave that. My other question is about the minority program. I believe you mentioned that there is a one-time license for 3 months. What happens? Do you mean the window for applying is only 3 months? Is that what that is?
Yeah, and this was sort of built into the cannabis law that was passed last session.
Right.
One of the sections in there created a 3-month window. And you're right, it is a 3 million fee. So in terms of revenue coming in, there will be that. But for, people to apply not through the lottery, but to open up in a disproportionately impacted area. So that is, it's just, that's how the law is written.
Okay, all right. So, and these licenses are for what portion of the process?
So that one is for the cultivator.
The cultivator. Okay.
Which is, yeah, a grower.
And it's got a medallion or a fee or whatever, 3 million for in order to do it?
Right.
To apply for it? Okay.
To apply for it through this process, yeah.
So I'm assuming there are not a lot of individual $3 million. So I'm assuming people are coming in as a board or a group.
Yeah, and almost any of the license types that are out there are being applied for, I would expect. We're not looking at them yet by entities.
Okay.
And, if you look at sort of the social equity definition is a business that's 65% owned or controlled by people who then meet that definition. So there's a recognition in the law that these aren't sole proprietorships. These are businesses.
That's the word.
No worries.
I couldn't think of what the word is. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for answering my questions right now. And if I have some more, I'll get back in touch with you. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. You know how to find all of us, probably.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen and Andrea could have probably given better answers. They're being polite.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you all to your team. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Are there any other questions from colleagues? Seeing none. Madam Administrator. Oh, wait, pursue to come on. Commissioner, if you want to say a last couple words, we'll be all set.
Okay, well, no, thank you all for being here and for your questions, and definitely, reach out to me or one of the deputies or to, our legislative director, Leslie, if you have other questions. But, thank you for giving us a chance to offer our thoughts on the budget.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Madam Administrator, are you available? If not, I'll just remind everybody, we do have a public hearing at 5 o'clock today. We only have 8 speakers, 8 instead of 235 or 81. We have 8. So I'm hoping that it will not be a long Friday night. So look forward to seeing you all at 5 o'clock for our public hearing.
Have a good day, Senator.